This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-electric Prologue SUV, there's a lot that could impress you about it. There's the generous passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Save big with Kroger's 12 Merry Days of Deals. From December 4th through the 15th, you can clip a hot new deal each day on our app or website. And if you're a Boost member, you can save even more. So don't miss out and be sure to check our app or website every day from December 4th through the 15th to clip each day's hot new deal. It's 12 Merry Days of Deals, a holly jolly way to save for the holidays at Kroger.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the MINDFIELD podcast from Anfield Index Pro, your sports psychology podcast for all things LFC. As always, I'm your host, Alan O'Donoghue, and I am joined by my partner in crime, Dr. Andrew Vincent. Dr. Andrew, how are you doing today?
Doing well. It's been a while since we've done one of these, and the Reds have been flying. So
the Reds have been flying. It is good, yeah. And if only we'd recorded this a day earlier than we are now, we wouldn't be coming into Liverpool 3, Newcastle 3. We would have just been still on the high of beating City 2-0. But it is what it is. And today, I suppose, Andrew, we can have a look at the mentality of winning and losing a bit, but also, can contracts and contract conversations be distracting to the squad, and how can, Arne Slot and his team hold all that together and still keep going on a run, and how injuries can have that impact as well. And it's, we're heading into the busiest period of the season and the impact that can have. But I suppose first things first, like as Liverpool fans, things have been going phenomenally well. Like,
yes, they have.
Way better than we ever could have hoped for. And we've had conversations about, Arne and how he's been able to portray a sense of calmness and a sense of solidity and a sense of confidence. Like, he comes across as a very confident man, and his ability to make changes that need to be changed and not worry about it. And that's fantastic when it works.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, and I don't know if this is your experience with this group as well, but it's like I can think of some Liverpool teams where it's like you knew while you were watching it, like, wow, what we're watching is unbelievable. And so it's like 13-14. And obviously, like, we didn't end up going all the way, but there were times when you were watching that team and watching Sturridge and Suarez do their thing, watching Sterling chip in, doing Coutinho things, Gerrard still doing the occasional Gerrard thing, and you're just like, this fucking team is unbelievable. I still like watching all the goals. Like, there's highlight reels of just the goals from that season. I still like watching those. It's like that was one where you're like, this is a thing. Victor Moses is like that's a
Victor Moses.
Like that. There were times with Klopp right? And like the championship, the Premier League winning season with Klopp, or times where it's like that team in the Champions League where it's like you would just watch our team run all over and suffocate another team with the pressing, and you would just be like, wow, like this is unbelievable. I don't have a ton of moments with this team where I'm like, wow, what we're watching right now is incredible. And maybe City is a little different, although I thought City just looked awful in the first half. Like maybe it's because we were really good and it's just like my eye for picking up on which is not great. But like my thought with City was like, if you had a prime Klopp team come out and play that, the first 20 minutes of that City team against like the first 20 minutes of like a prime Klopp team, it would be 7-0 in the 20 minutes. Like they would have just blitzed them. It would have been unbelievable. I thought we played well. Like our team looked really good in a lot of ways, but like this team is just very kind of like quietly and casually, while looking like there's space to improve, amassing a huge amount of points in a very controlled way, just step by step by step getting better. And maybe it's also like the game a lot of people have raved about is Leverkusen, and I missed the Leverkusen game because Champions League's hard to watch over here in the States if you're working in the afternoons. But yeah, so I don't know if you've had the same experience, but it's really interesting. Clearly there's something special going on here, but I can't place it visually the way I have been able to maybe in the past.
Yeah, it's very different. And what I'd say is this year is reminding me a lot more of the year we won the league than other Klopp years. From the point of view of watching us get into a lead and just shut the game down.
Mm-hmm.
We just shut the game down. And the generally the calmness I feel watching Liverpool now, I haven't had that probably since then. Mm-hmm. So it's like that. It's like the roller coaster with Klopp. Like it's so much fun, but you feel like you're going to die sometimes as well. Whereas with Arne, it's almost like German efficiency, even though he's Dutch. Like we know we're going to get there on time, safe, and it's going to be great. But it's not going to be a roller coaster, and I'm getting used to feeling okay with that. Yeah. It was a bit sterile not sterile, but it felt a bit sterile and stale at the start in terms of we weren't used to it. It's just we weren't used to it. But I've got fully on board with it. And what I'm loving about him, and I think probably we mentioned in the last one, is this ability to change tactically within games, and for the players, for the most part, to be able to respond and execute those changes. So it almost is like he has 5 different ways of playing, and the players are getting to grips with that. Now, if we look at the Newcastle match last night, and I was kind of in and out, picking up children, so I didn't get to sit and watch it all, but what I did see of it was we weren't as effective as we have been. They seem to rattle us a bit, which is understandable given we had Kwanzaa at right back and Joe, in the centre defence. And I think Joe is fantastic. I think he's as good as Konate in different ways. But we seemed to get a bit rattled when we didn't score early on. The ref was absolutely giving us nothing. Like, in fact, he was the opposite. Like, he was actively like giving yellow cards to Liverpool players for nothing, and giving not even free kicks against Newcastle for stuff that absolutely should have been yellow cards. So that can get on top of you. But yet we still created exceptionally good opportunities that we just didn't execute on. So, like, I never remember watching a match against City over Klopp's tenure And like, I'm not saying that hasn't happened, but I don't remember watching one being so calm. Like, I was in no way worried watching that match at any time at all. I just knew we were winning that match. And I knew that if City had scored, we probably would have scored again. I had no fear at all. And I was not used to that under Klopp. So I suppose to summarize it, I'm enjoying it, but I'm enjoying it in a very different way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's growing on me. Slot is growing on me too, his approach to press conferences and stuff. Just so even-keeled.
Yeah.
And you get the impression like sometimes people are even-keeled because they're trying to be even-keeled. Like, he just seems exceptionally even-keeled. And so it's like, you know, from everything I had heard, I'd listened to Raw too. Like, obviously the officiating was pretty bad. And they asked him a question in his press conference, like, where, you know, you and your staff were frustrated by that. And like, instead of being drawn into like, yeah, this call was annoying, he was just kind of like, yeah, it was an intense game. So in intense games, like, the players get heated, staff gets heated. So yeah, like, we were probably pretty heated. It was just like, to take that question, which Klopp wouldn't have been able to help but swing at, right? And just turn it into such a nothing of a, yeah, wow, that was intense. Next question is like really interestingly connected to some of the soccer side of things and the football side of things, excuse me. But you know, it's really his calmness and like, okay, yeah, that's happening, let's change this. Yeah, that's true. Like, embracing the even-keeledness of it, I think, is what you're saying. And
Yeah, and I think he has, what he's showing me is the mentality that I want in a head coach or a manager, where he can be in the emotion of it and get heated, but afterwards, probably very quickly, and maybe this just resonates with me on a personal level, because I would probably find this, you know, I don't get angry very much, but if I do get angry, you know, I'm able to get back on track pretty quickly. Like, it just, I'm like, okay, what's actually happening here? What's going on? And I can kind of calm myself down very quickly. And I could imagine that, and this is just me putting it on him maybe, but after the match, within, I would say, probably 5 minutes, he was going, we just got a point. And that was the next game. Let's go. And he'll go away, he'll dissect it. But I suppose this is the difference. We're watching it and we're going, oh no, are we going to go on a bit of a run? And we've got all these injuries and we've got to face all these, and we've got the Merseyside derby and they just fucking won, banging in loads of goals, and they always raise their game and it's the last game in Goodison. And we are getting anxious about the future and the short term and the long term. But I don't want my coach to do that. I want my coach to be able to go, okay, this is what we need to improve. Darwin, we need to put the ball in the back of the net. And we just got to stick to our game plan. This is what we're up against next, or likely to be up against next. This is how we're going to execute it. And if it's not working, this is what we're going to change it to. We don't need to worry about everything else. And the past is gone. So it's done.
there's something incredibly exemplary about that. And I think in some ways, like when I'm working with athletes, that's where I want them to be able to get to. It's almost a little boring because it's the narratives that make things interesting. It's the stress that makes things interesting. So you perform better if you take away the stress, but it is also a little less interesting. And so, like, you know, if you're working with someone who wants to score, I don't know, 20 goals in a season, you got like a striker or whatever, who wants to score 20 goals across a Premier League season. I don't work with Premier League strikers, but let's say that this is the situation.
Yet.
In some ways, like this idea of, okay, I want to bang in 20 goals, like that gives them this purpose across the course of the season. But what you can sometimes have happen is like, let's say I go 3 without scoring. Not a big deal, but I wanted to score 1 every other game. So now I need a game where I get 2. So now they start putting a little pressure on themselves to be like, okay, I need 2 in a row, or I got to get 2 this game, or am I shooting enough? And it can get in the way of their process very quickly because it's these big picture goals. So like what you sort of want them to be doing is just like, what's your process? What are the 2 or 3 things you want to focus on, or the 1 or 2 things you want to focus on every game? And then do that and hold yourself accountable for that process. And don't worry about the goals, because if your process, other than like, if you haven't scored in 10 games, then let's evaluate your process. But if your process is right, you're making chances, your shooting is good, then like, okay, like the goals are going to come. You just have to trust that. It's a little boring, right? Like if every game was an exhibition game where there was no season, there were no standing, there were no points totals, there were no goals totals. It was just like, hey, everyone go out every game, just focus on the things you're going to focus on. Like most of us wouldn't watch because it would be like, what are we building towards here? Like no one watches the game and just is like, wow, what a consistent process. And like, wow, I'm marveling at the consistency of this process. But that's also what actually contributes to the bigger picture stuff. Is if you can have that consistency of process over time and stay pretty calm and even keeled about it, it's great. And so it's great to see with Slot that he can do that. There's so much more here too. And I think that's the thing that when I'm watching is Mo has obviously been unbelievable. Like unbelievable. And playing a different way from how he did 5 years ago and being unbelievable. Virgil van Dijk against Manchester City was the most impressive thing I've ever seen. Like, every time Haaland looked like he might be dangerous, as all of a sudden Virgil just popped up. I was like, nope. And it was like the number of times like I noticed him just like stealing Haaland's dreams. Well, it was just like, it was unbelievable. This probably isn't a commercial that ever would have aired in Europe at any point, but there's this commercial in the US for a while of this basketball players in an office, and there's like a bunch of people trying to like shoot trash into trash cans or just throw paper out in trash cans, and he would whack it away and be like, not today. Or someone would try to throw something into the groceries cart and he would whack it away and be like, not today. It's like, that was just Virgil. So it's like, are there players who have been incredibly impressive? Absolutely. But there's also so many spots in the team where it's like, there's way more we could be getting out of a striker position. There's way more consistency that Gravenberch could find. There is a holding midfielder, like a real holding midfielder, what that player could bring to the team in terms of like that extra bit of consistency is huge. Konate had been incredible while he was playing, and now it's like, okay, like there's more you get from Joe. Trent coming back adds a layer. There's still more we could get from the left back position. And it's like you look and it's like, this team's been incredible, and there's more. There's just more. And you get the sense too that Slot hasn't really implemented everything he wants to technically and tactically in terms of like where his thinking is. And it's, there's more levels to this team. But it's really impressive.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Chronic migraine is 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for adults with migraine with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It prevents, on average, 8 to 9 headache days a month versus 6 to 7 for placebo.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Ask your doctor and visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
To see the point totals and the success, despite often when I'm watching this group, what I feel like is there's more that they're capable of. There's another level here.
Yeah, and what I think is one of his strengths is he comes across to me as someone who's quite good at compartmentalizing things and decompartmentalizing things, when it comes to individual players and their role within the team. So he looks to me like he can sit down and he will evaluate Queevy and Keller and be able to talk to him about, like, not the obvious things like, in the 89th minute, catch the fucking ball when you can catch the fucking ball, right? But he might, but I don't think he needs to say that. Like, I don't think Keller is ever going to make that mistake ever again, and nobody will ever have to say it to him. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's an outlier, but there will be little things that he'll be able to do that will say, do this, maybe change how you approach this. And I could see him being able to do that with every single player on the team, including Mo, including Virgil. I can't imagine, I'd say he is coaching them, where there'd be a lot of coaches maybe would come in and go, well, what the fuck can I tell Virgil to do better? Or what can I do to tell Mo? It's like, with American football and, the whole thing with, and I know how much you love American football. But, Jesus, the name's dropped out of my head. Quarterback, most successful quarterback. Tom Brady.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of him.
For those of you who don't know, folks, Andrew detests American football. I don't.
Won't detest it. I don't detest it. But
I don't want that. But, like,
I'm going to cut into my business here.
He loves working with American football players. He doesn't watch the game. But, like, everyone would talk about how it's just impossible to coach Tom Brady because there's nothing you can tell him that he doesn't know way more about. what I would think with the likes of Mo, the likes of Verge, I think Slot probably is coming in and saying, this is how you could be more effective. It's not saying that you haven't been effective or you're not doing a good enough job, but this is by making these simple tweaks, you can be a lot more better in the structure of this team the way we need it played. And I think we're starting to see that play out. Like, did anybody think Mo would be having the season, apart from Simon Brunish, that he'd be having the season that he's having this year? Did anyone think Virgil would be having the season? Because let's be honest, at the start of the season, there was questions. People were going, I'd rather keep Trent and lose Virgil and Mo on a free come the end of the season because maybe they're coming to the end of their best. And literally both of them are playing as good as they have ever played in the past.
Absolutely. And I think what you're saying there, but you get the sense that there's little tweaks he's given them or something to focus on. I think, it's something I've seen in certain moments, and it's interesting. Like, as players get better or as you move up, right? Like when you're 12, 13, 14, 15, it doesn't matter how good you are. There's coaches who know exactly what you need to work on. It's very clear to them. And so you have a lot of clarity around, here's what I need to be doing better. As you get incrementally better, the amount of really individual coaching you get, I think, tends to decrease. That's been my experience. Like, a lot of the times managers and coaches are more focused on the big picture of the team. You might have sort of position specific coaches or skills coaches who are a little bit more dialed into your personal development, but a lot more of that tends to fall on you, at least with what I've seen in ice hockey. But I'm going to go ahead and imagine that's true with soccer as well, or football as well, is like, you kind of get to a point where maybe you're in your mid-20s, your late 20s, and people might have something for you, but it's like they're not necessarily going to be really continually invested in your development in the same way. That can be disorienting, actually, to players in a certain sense, because you're used to always having someone tell you what you're supposed to be doing and what you need to be working on and what's next for you to get better. And then, like, I've worked with players who this is the case. It's like they stop getting that feedback and they're almost like, well, what do I need to work on? What do I need to do better? Like, well, now what? And it's weird for them. And it's like, they have trouble almost assessing, like, am I playing well? Because what am I supposed to be getting better at? And it's like, maybe they have this general feeling of like, okay, that was a good game. That was a bad game. I didn't make a lot of mistakes. I've had a positive impact, but like, it's disorienting to not have that very direct, here's what's next kind of feedback. And so I think sometimes when you have a tactical change or a big picture switch where a manager is now expecting different things from you, those expectations become orienting because it's something a bit different of like, okay, now I have to master this and figure this out. And it provides some direction. And so, I don't know if for Virgil and Mo, if it's so much been, hey, here's the things you need to add to your game or get better at, or just, hey, here's some things I would like you to do more or differently, or here's my expectation of you, or some combination of both. But it certainly could be some sort of instruction or change that's just giving them that little extra bit of direction. And that's part of what we're seeing in their performance, is that little bit of extra directionality of here's what's expected of me. Just pulls that little bit more out of them.
And because they are so elite, they can do it.
Right.
They can make those tweaks and very quickly get them embedded in how they play. And we're seeing that, which is absolutely phenomenal. So talking about these two, do you think there is a potential for a destabilizing impact for all this talk about contracts and stuff like that? And I'm going to preface this because what was really interesting after the City match to me was when Virgil and Mo were being interviewed by Sky Sports. And the guy doing the interview and turned around to Virgil and said, I'm not going to ask you about this. Mo, your contract. Now, isn't that interesting that they'll talk to Mo about it, but they won't talk to Virgil? So that's fascinating. Well, Mo was obviously happy to talk about it, Virgil, I'm sure, has said to them, don't ask me about it. I'm not talking about it. Right? Mo might say, ask me about it because I want to talk about it. And that's his prerogative. But do you think that there could be a destabilizing impact on their team if this noise continues and if it starts to become a narrative that gets blown up within the media and punditry? Do players pay enough attention, do you think, to that kind of stuff?
Players all know. And it certainly matters to them. I would say, first of all, if you're winning, probably not going to be an issue. Right? And that's, so like things are going well. And so there's no fingers to point. And so like that helps a lot. And so if you lose a couple games or go on the skid, now all of a sudden the impulse for everyone, if something's not working how you want, is to say, well, what's going wrong? And we'll just start pointing at things, right? Because like that's what our brains are there for. They're not necessarily there for the truth. They're there to alert us of possibilities that we can investigate. And so one of those possibilities is that, oh, well, Mo being so outspoken about his contract has destabilized the team. But the team's not destabilized. So there's no through line there. And so like you can be Jamie Carragher and say, oh, well, he's being selfish and that's going to be a distraction to everyone. Who's distracted? No one looks distracted. So what are you talking about? Right? If we were losing a few in a row, all of a sudden it's like, well, there are some people distracted. What's that about? And so within the locker room, it would be the same way because all of those people are humans as well. And so, that might be something that comes up. Would they point the finger at Mo? Would they point the finger at FSG or like ownership? Like that's a different question a little bit. Because certainly, players will have their own relation with ownership and how decisions are made and, who's being offered what and when and how. They probably also have a much more realistic picture than we do about where those talks actually are. Players know. That's the reality of it. And probably most of their agents have a pulse on those negotiations in some sort of way, whether it's for the sake of their own future contracts or because if all three of those players walk away, there might be some other people who are looking for a way out the door or, different things like that. And so what I would say is like, it's all totally fine as long as performances are good and the team is winning. Like there's just things like that are going to be little blips on the radar. And I think probably no one's going to worry about it. It was interesting in that same interview when they were giving the player of the match award and they were like, oh, who picked Mo? And it was like Gary Neville. And Mo was like, oh, well, Carragher wouldn't pick me. And, Virgil kind of tried to end there by being like, we don't pay any attention to that. Like, we don't pay any attention to it. But like, clearly they do, right? And like, clearly what Carragher said has been sort of a joke in their locker room. Like, they're making fun of him pretty openly, it sounds like. And that's a good sign. It means the group is sort of united against that noise rather than it being the case of like, there's some eyebrows raised about Mo and how he's approaching it. And so, I don't worry about it being a destabilizing force, but if things become destabilized, I would worry about it being pointed to as a reason that the destabilization happens, if that makes sense. And, that would then cause tension and people might get singled out and there might be angst directed towards that. But that's not to say it's the actual cause. It just becomes a really easy thing to point to. And we've definitely talked about this before as like winning.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
Behind the bright lights and adrenaline of pro sports is an equally exciting world of negotiations and deal making.
That's what we cover each week on our podcast, The Deal.
I'm Alex Rodriguez, former baseball player turned business executive.
And I'm Jason Kelly, chief correspondent for Bloomberg Originals. Over the next couple months, we'll hear from all stars like Jay Williams.
I want to be an owner one day.
Billie Jean King.
Learn the business.
And so many more. Listen to The Deal on Spotify.
Gift sport with gifts from Nike. From the retro Vomero 5 sneaker designed with Zoom Air cushioning to fleece engineered with lightweight warmth and next-level comfort, we have the perfect gift for any athlete on your list. Shop now at your nearest Nike store.
Winning is the best the best thing for morale and team unity and team harmony, and just like if everything's going well, like if the group is winning, what people are really comfortable with letting slide or not challenging or not getting frustrated about is just so much more than if the losses start creeping in.
And I do think we have to be very mindful of the media planting seeds that could be watered by bad results. So the likes of Carragher calling out Salah like that has absolutely set that up, that if we hit a sticky patch, I have no doubt at all, to the core of my being, that Sky will be using that as the narrative. And it will get overplayed and replayed and remixed and sent out into the ether as that is the reason why. Because the groundwork has been laid already. So I think for us as fans, maybe it's something for us to be mindful of and to be wary of, that we don't allow ourselves to be sucked into that game that is absolutely being played all the time by the mainstream media.
Mm-hmm. And played by Mo.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is like part of Mo's strategy of saying like, oh, this might be my last game against City. It's to make the fans upset. So that the fans being upset puts FSG on their toes. You know? And like, I think it's just a funny world that we live in that sense, is like, you know, I don't know if this has always been the case, but there's so much media coverage now, and there's so much, like, being a fan, it's like you almost recognize that part of what it's like WWE. You know, it's like what you're watching then when Mo says, oh, it might be my last game against City, is like, you know, okay, he doesn't mean that. Maybe he does, but like really, like he's saying that to create an effect, to create drama, you know, and he's using that. And so like as fans, we can kind of react to it, but also at the same time, we sort of know like there's more going on behind the scenes. Like this is part of a thing. There's a conversation going on between his representatives in Liverpool, clearly. And, you know, maybe they are legitimately frustrated with that. I don't know how these talks work. I'm getting antsy. But I also think the antsier I get, the better Mo's position is. And I forget who had talked about it the other day, but like I had heard something about Trent and Virgil are sort of watching the negotiations with Mo. And sort of are the idea that I gathered, maybe it was David Lynch. Their parties, their teams are kind of watching how Mo's negotiation goes, and will sort of be following on from that. And like all of their positions look better and better the longer they wait. And if they get into January, now they can get some other contracts. And so maybe Real Madrid shows up with a huge contract for Virgil that Virgil never signs, and maybe they don't think he'll sign. But Virgil walks up to Liverpool and says, oh, look what they just offered me. Can you match it? And so we talked about it really early on in the season. I had said that like none of them should sign their contracts, and like none of them in September should sign a contract.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is why. You know, and was there a chance that the team sort of flops, a couple of them play really badly, and then, you know, it looks a little easier. It looks like, okay, it's the end of an era. We let some of them go, and that's maybe not what they wanted. Sure, that would have been a bummer. But, like, that's not how things turned out. And you can count on Mo and Virgil to back themselves. You can count on Trent to back himself, too. So, like, here they are. This is what they wanted. And I think if they want to stay at Liverpool, like, good. And that's probably what they'll do. But now they've got this really nice position. And I think from a team perspective, as long as they're showing up and working hard and the team is winning, then no one is going to be super concerned about what they're saying and when. And I think the truth is Mo is professional enough too that if we lost to City, he doesn't use that press conference as a chance to poke the bear and try to get a little bit of drama going. You know, like I think, yeah, I think he knows that too. Like, I don't think it's coincidence that he's been playing well and winning, and that's when he's making these comments.
Yeah. And I think you're right. If the three of them were coming in and just punching it in, their negotiation position maybe isn't as strong as it is now. But the fact is, all three, okay, Trent has been a bit injured, but all three have been playing absolutely phenomenally because they are three of the best players in the world. Like, they're in a massive position, and we can sit and we can point fingers and point blame as to, like, how did it get to this? But it just is what it is. Like, it's unusual for a team to be negotiating with probably their three biggest players. At the same time, for all of them to stay at the same time, like, yeah, it was a fuck up by somebody or numerous people, and maybe there's a continuation of the fuck up with the current regime, but it is what it is. And we have as choices as fans, we can get sucked into that narrative and worry about not having them next season, or we can just enjoy them for however long we have. And that's the impression I get from listening to them talking about their situations. They don't seem to be panicking. They're just playing their games. And if they're still Liverpool next season, great. And if they're not, so be it. That's sort of like from their perspective. Yeah, they'll be okay. And guess what? So will we.
And I think if all of a sudden January rolls around and Trent's going to Real Madrid and the other two are going somewhere else also, or we start hearing a lot of stories about the other clubs that could sign them, that runs the risk of being destabilizing.
So how do you control that?
You don't. And like, sometimes it's just like that. And so I think probably Arne Slot's a good person to have at the wheel if that's the case, because it's like, okay, like they're professional. They're going to give us their best through the end of the year. But I think they would all be professional and put a lot of effort in and maybe want to, finish their Liverpool career on a high, and that would matter a lot to them. But I also think if you've got half a foot out the door, you've got half a foot out the door. And you can be professional about it. But there's also some part of you preparing for the next chapter. And I think it's really hard to pretend otherwise. And it's like, that's not to say, and maybe people will have had this experience themselves. This is what playing a sport, like, so in high school sports when I was younger, hockey season can be super long. Like, you start in October and you end in like March, April. And so, it's cold you're in a lot of rings. Sometimes when I was playing in high school, by the time you get to the end of the season, the sectional finals would usually like the playoffs would usually coincide with a week off from school. And so there would be part of you that would, like, in your head, it was like you wanted to win that game really badly. But it was also impossible to not sort of think to yourself, if we lose, I do have the week off with no practices, no games, nothing to think about. And having worked with a lot of athletes at a lot of different levels, not to say this is a universal experience because some people don't get this, but like there are definitely, this pops up for people of like, I am 100% committed to winning this game, but also if we didn't, is that an experience you can relate to at all, Al? I don't know. Like, I guess playoffs are different. Like, a lot of sports don't really have playoffs per se, but like.
Yeah, that to me is like, you what? Now, while as a parent, I want my children to succeed in their sports, but there are times where I'm looking at, like, it's literally pissing rain here now.
Yep.
And I'm going, if it stays like this at the weekend and my daughter's semi-final doesn't go the way that it might, I'll be disappointed for her. But it means I'm not standing on the sideline freezing my ass off.
Or like a tournament where it's like, okay, like if you win the Sunday morning game, you get the Sunday evening game. Or if you lose the Sunday morning game, everyone gets to go home and enjoy their afternoon. I'm like, I think it's impossible for those things to not live somewhere. And it's even harder if your next chapter is something you're looking forward to more. And if you're signing with a new team, it means that you're more excited about that project than the one you're with. You're more excited about the role. You're more excited about the compensation. The next chapter is better. And that's why you signed for somewhere different. And that doesn't mean there's two things going on at once. It doesn't mean you're phoning it in, but it also is not the same as it would be if you were committed to this project for the next 5 years. And like, you can be as professional as possible. You can be putting in 100%, but that 100% is different than that 100% would be if you were staying. And so, yes, that can be destabilizing. And then I also just think in the room, knowing that your three best players and probably your three biggest leaders are all leaving at the end of the season, is everyone's going to have question marks. Because it's like the page is already turned, but no one really knows what the new thing is going to look like. You can't know what it's going to look like until those people leave and there's space for new voices. But at the same time, those voices don't carry the same weight if you know they're leaving.
And this is just results go well, because the counterbalance to that is they will all have the experience of the biggest voice, Jurgen Klopp, leaving, and the vacuum being created, and Arne Slot coming in, and all going well, potentially winning a league, potentially winning the Champions League, and they go, okay. So the big head, the big honcho can leave, and we can be okay.
I think your three best players leaving is different from your coach leaving.
I think so too. I was just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, I could tell from your face. I don't know if I know the video goes somewhere sometimes. I don't know if anyone watches this on video, but I think anyone watching you would be able to tell that you're being devil's advocate there a little bit. Yeah, I think that would be really tough. If you sign two of them, it's not as big of a deal. Or even close, and I think actually then, like, it's one player can probably be slightly looking forward to what's next, but and still a little bit more committed if the rest of the group is really in place. But I think if those three players were all to be leaving, it would feel so transitional for us. and the end of such an era and such a chapter that it would be very difficult to play the season out in a way that wasn't destabilized. Winning helps, absolutely. If you just keep winning, then like, okay, yeah, probably not a big deal. Maybe we have a big enough lead too that like, you know, a couple hiccups here and there, or like you just keep winning because you're so far ahead that things don't get super challenging. You don't hit much adversity. But I think if you hit adversity in that situation, overcoming it would be very challenging with 3 of your best players halfway out the door.
Andrew, as always, thank you so much for your expertise and insight, and your complete lack of optimism. We're losing the 3 lads. We're going to finish outside the top 4. We're going to get knocked out of the Champions League, and you know that's our fate. That's what you're telling us. I jest. You bring a knowledge and understanding of the insights of the mind relative to sport like nobody else. So thank you so much for your contributions. And listeners, thank you for your ears. I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's been a while. Hopefully it won't be as long before the next one. But in the meantime, look after yourselves.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.